My name is Gwen Austin, and I was 16 years old when my family decided I was the problem they needed to remove. If you drove past our house too quickly, you'd think it belonged in a brochure. Perfect lawn lines, white curtains that always matched. Even the mailbox was wiped down like it mattered what the mailman thought of us. My mother, Clara, called it her safe space. Inside, everything felt like it could explode if someone breathed wrong. My dad, Tom, traveled most weeks for work. When he was home, he stayed in his office with the door half closed, pretending to be busy. He was good at nodding without listening. Mom called him the steady one, but that was only because he never chose a side. And then there was my younger brother, Ryan, 13 years old, baby face, big eyes, full-time victim. Ryan learned early that if he acted scared of me, adults would rush to protect him. I could sigh too loudly, and he'd flinch. I could walk past him in the hallway, and he'd say I was mad again. Mom would scold me before I even opened my mouth. Every morning started the same way. Shoes by the door, dishes away, no crumbs on the counter. She said it in her checklist voice, not angry, yet, just exact. The tone changed fast if you missed a step. There was a whiteboard in the kitchen labeled House Standards. Each rule had a box next to it. Check marks meant you'd done good that day. Red X's meant you'd failed. She said it taught accountability. I learned it taught silence. Talking back earned you a red X. Explaining yourself earned two. Church was worse. Ryan played the angel. Adults smiled at him like he was proof that parenting worked. Mom beamed when they said, "You've raised such polite kids." She never looked at me when they said it. School wasn't an escape either. Teachers called me intense. Asking why a rule existed was labeled disrespect. I got decent grades, not great, because every report card came with the same line from my mom. You could do better if you focused like your brother. Our neighbor, Mrs. Helen, didn't help. She watered her plants just to watch people. She told Mom she was concerned about me. Said I looked angry when I walked home. Mom loved that. After one of those talks, I came home to find my bedroom door open and my things rearranged. She said she was checking for cigarettes. I didn't smoke. That night, I started hiding my phone in a shoebox under my bed. She'd already gone through it once, claiming she was protecting me from bad influences. The house ran on surveillance. Cameras in the living room. Door codes that change monthly. Mom called it responsible parenting. I called it paranoia. The only thing that made sense was my old bike. Tightening bolts. Hearing gears click into place. Machines didn't lie about what was broken. Ryan liked to watch me work. He'd smile from the porch like we were close. Then say something sweet sharp like, "Mom said you're not supposed to use the tools without asking." Then he'd run inside. 10 minutes later, Mom would be at the door. "What did I tell you about respecting house property?" When Dad left on another trip, Ryan got bold. Mom gave him access to the house tablet so he could help track chores. He was promoted to spy. When I tried to talk to her, I said quietly, "I feel like you believe him no matter what." She didn't hesitate. "Then stop giving him reasons to worry." That was the whole conversation. By Friday, the air felt heavy. Even the light seemed too bright. Ryan started breaking small things, a picture frame, a charger, then whispering, "Mom's going to blame you." He wasn't wrong. That night, I went into the hallway for water and heard my parents' door cracked open. "She's going to ruin everything we've built," Mom said. Dad answered softly. "She's just a kid." "No," she snapped. "She's a problem." I stood there until the floor creaked. The voices stopped. I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, thinking about how even something installed perfectly can shake itself loose if it spins too long. The house felt like that, waiting. The next week started off tense. Nobody said it out loud, but the house felt like it was waiting for someone to mess up. Mom paced more than usual, lips tight, eyes darting like she was looking for something out of place. Dad stayed late at work, claiming extra meetings. Ryan grinned too much. That fake calm before he pulled something. Wednesday afternoon, Mom was in her office finishing a presentation for her job. Ryan hovered behind her, pretending to help. 10 minutes later, I heard her scream, the kind that makes your stomach drop. I ran in and saw her clutching her laptop, eyes wild. "It's gone," she shouted. "The file's gone." Ryan stepped back, hands up. "Gwen used the computer earlier," he said quickly. It wasn't true. I hadn't touched it. But Mom spun toward me before I could even breathe. "You did this, didn't you?" she snapped. "You can't stand to see anyone else succeed." "I didn't even open your laptop," I said, palms out. "Check the history. You'll see." She didn't check anything. She just slammed the laptop shut and stormed out like the verdict was already written. Later, I heard her tell Dad autosave brought it back. Then, in the same breath, she mentioned the trash folder showed it was renamed and deleted while Ryan was helping. No apology, not even a pause. Dinner that night was a minefield. Ryan kept nudging my leg under the table, whispering, "Maybe don't touch Mom's stuff next time." I told him to stop. Mom looked up from her plate. "Don't start." "I wasn't starting," I said. She cut me off with a glare that said, "You don't get to finish sentences here." Then her phone buzzed. She read the screen, frowned, and muttered, "Unbelievable," like she'd caught me doing something again. "Your teacher emailed me," she said. "Apparently you're being disrespectful, non-cooperative. Is this true?" "I didn't say anything disrespectful," I said. "I just asked." "You just can't stop talking back, can you?" she snapped. Dad rubbed his forehead. "Gwen, you've got to stop making everything harder than it is." "I'm not doing anything wrong," I said, and my voice sounded smaller than I wanted. He looked up finally, eyes sharp with irritation. "Then get serious or get out." The air left my chest. Ryan leaned back in his chair like he was watching a show he'd bought tickets for. Mom said, "That's enough. Go to your room. I'm done." I stood up, but I didn't move. Something in me was searching for the right words, the ones that might make them see me again. "You don't even listen anymore," I said. "Because I'm tired of the lies," Mom replied, without hesitation. That's when I saw it. Ryan's phone, half hidden, recording. I caught the reflection in the glass cabinet. He wanted proof of me losing it. He wanted a clip he could replay to make everyone nod along. "See? She's the problem." I took one step closer to the counter and slammed my hand down. The sound echoed through the kitchen. "Nobody listens," I said, and my voice cracked halfway through. Not a threat, not violence, just exhaustion, finally getting a voice. Ryan shot up like I'd set him on fire. He bolted for the stairs and screamed, "She hit me!" Mom gasped and ran after him. I followed a few seconds later, heart pounding, mouth dry, already knowing how this would go. In Ryan's room, Mom held him like he was 5. His gaming monitor was on the floor, cracked through the middle. He clutched his shoulder, skin red like he'd rubbed it hard. "She grabbed me and threw it," he sobbed. Mom turned and looked at me like I'd pulled a knife. "You did this?" she asked. "I didn't touch him," I said. "I didn't touch anything. Ask him. She didn't blink. "Stay right there," she said, voice low and sharp. "Don't move." Dad came running up, took in the cracked screen, then looked at me like he was too tired to ask questions that might lead to answers. "What the hell happened?" he asked, but it didn't sound like he wanted to know. "Ask him," I said again. "He broke it earlier." Ryan sniffled. "She's lying." Mom pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police, for safety." "Are you serious?" I whispered. She didn't answer. When the officers showed up, everything slowed down. They asked questions, looked at the room, looked at Ryan. No real injury, no marks that made sense. Just a boy performing fear in his mother's arms. One of the cops asked me quietly if I wanted to go somewhere else for the night. I said no, not because I felt safe, because I knew leaving would make their story cleaner. When the police left, the silence felt heavier than the shouting. Mom turned to me. "You need help. This can't go on." "I didn't hurt him," I said. "That's exactly what someone in denial says." Dad began packing a small bag with my clothes. I asked where I was going. He didn't meet my eyes. "Just do what your mother says. It's for the best." I didn't argue anymore. The next morning, Mom was already dressed with her keys in hand. "We're taking you to a program," she said brightly, like she was announcing a weekend trip. "A good one. They help families like ours." Ryan sat on the stairs, eating cereal with that small smirk he always wore when he got what he wanted. I walked out without looking at him. In the car, Mom talked about healing and starting over. Her voice was calm, almost cheerful, like she'd solved a big problem. I looked out the window as the neighborhood slid past. Perfect lawns, clean driveways, families who probably thought we were normal. I didn't say a word the whole ride. I kept thinking the same sentence over and over, like a warning bell. "This isn't help, it's cleanup." They weren't saving me. They were getting rid of me. The sign out front said Ridgeway Youth Recovery Center. Underneath, in smaller letters, it read, "Rebuilding Futures." From the outside, it looked like a private school. Brick walls, trimmed grass, wide windows that reflected the sky just enough to feel open. If you didn't know better, you'd think kids went there to get ahead. When the doors closed behind me, I heard a lock click. That sound stayed with me longer than anything else. A woman with a plastic smile took my bag before I could even set it down. "Welcome to Ridgeway," she said, like she was reading off a script. Her name tag said Angela, but she didn't say my name once. I had to empty my pockets. Phone, belt, shoelaces, Even my earbuds. Everything went into labeled bins. I watched my life get sorted and tagged like evidence. They handed me a clear plastic bag with a toothbrush, 2 gray shirts with Ridgeway printed across the back, and sweatpants that smelled like bleach. Each item had a number. Mine was 47B. No one asked what happened at home. No one asked if I was okay. They already knew who I was supposed to be. Intake took about an hour. Forms, signatures, a nurse reading questions off a clipboard without looking up. I answered everything honestly at first. That didn't last. The hallway smelled like cafeteria food and disinfectant. My room had 2 metal bunks, a dresser with a cracked drawer, and a window set too high to reach. The door didn't close all the way. That was on purpose. My bunkmates arrived later. Marcus, 17, tall with a sarcastic grin, like he'd learned early that humor was armor. And Luis, 15, quiet, thin, dark circles under his eyes like sleep had given up on him. Marcus tossed his bag onto the top bunk and looked at me. "You the new kid?" "Yeah," he nodded. "Welcome to Ridgeway High School for the morally confused." Luis didn't say anything. He sat on his bed and started writing in a notebook, his hand moving fast like he was racing a clock only he could see. Lights out was at 9. A guard did rounds every hour, flashlight beams sweeping the walls. We weren't allowed to shut the door fully. Privacy was something you earned by agreeing with them. Morning started with a bell at 6. Breakfast was powdered eggs, toast, and milk that tasted like plastic. Then group therapy. Group therapy was a circle of plastic chairs under a poster that said, "Own your harm. Find your peace." The counselor, Ms. Denning, spoke like a podcast host. Calm voice. Practiced empathy. "Accountability is healing," she said. "Who wants to start?" Kids took turns confessing things like they were rehearsed monologues. Anger, violence, substance abuse. Everyone nodded like they were in church. When it was my turn, I said, "I didn't hurt anyone. My brother lied." Ms. Denning smiled wider. "Denial is very common at this stage." "There's nothing to deny," I said. "I didn't do it." She wrote something on her clipboard. "Resistance needs structured empathy." That was the moment I understood. Truth wasn't the goal here. Agreement was. After that, I stopped talking. Marcus leaned over later and whispered, "If you don't say sorry, they keep you longer." "You're joking." He shook his head. "You just say you understand your triggers. Cry a little. They call you cured." Luis finally spoke that night, voice barely above a whisper. "It doesn't matter what you say. They already wrote our stories." Days blurred together. Breakfast, chores, worksheets about anger cycles, group sessions where silence counted as defiance, lights out. Talking got you nowhere, so I went quiet. I started doing push-ups in the mornings, sit-ups, running laps in the hallway during free time. It helped burn off the anger before it turned into something they could label. We weren't supposed to write anything that wasn't program approved, but I kept a small notebook under my mattress. I didn't write feelings, just facts. Day 9. Counselor says silence is avoidance. Day 14. Marcus laughed at breakfast. Day 20. Luis says he dreams of home every night. I don't. 2 months in, Mom visited. The staff rearranged the visiting room to look warm. Plants, cookies, soft lighting. It felt staged, like a realtor showing a house. Mom hugged me like someone posing for a photo. "You look calmer," she said. "I was calm before," I replied. She smiled tightly. "See, that's the attitude we're fixing." She spoke to the counselor afterward, praising Ridgeway for turning her daughter around. I heard her laugh down the hall. I didn't feel angry. I felt hollow. After that, she stopped visiting. Marcus made things bearable. He joked about the counselors, called them the emotion police. But at night, when the lights went out, his voice dropped. "You know why you're really here, right?" he asked once. "Because my family needed a villain." He snorted softly. "Exactly. Easier to say my daughter's getting help than we screwed her over." Luis nodded from the lower bunk. "Better a rehab kid than a broken family." I didn't answer. I just wrote it down later. 6 months in, they said I was ready for release. I hadn't admitted harm. I hadn't apologized for something I didn't do. But I followed rules. I didn't fight. At Ridgeway, compliance looked like healing on paper. The night before I left, Marcus walked with me as close to the exit as we were allowed. The sky outside the barred window looked too big, like it belonged to another life. "When you get out," he said, "don't expect a new family waiting. Expect the same one, just quieter." "I know," I said. In the morning, they handed me my phone back. Dead battery, no messages. They gave me a packet labeled Home Transition Plan. It said things like practice patience and be honest about your progress. Dad was waiting in the car. He didn't get out, just nodded when I opened the door. The drive home was silent except for the GPS voice. Halfway there, he cleared his throat. Your mom's been worried sick. I looked out the window. I thought about what Marcus said, how people prefer neat stories to messy truths, how families cling to versions of you that make them feel justified. When we pulled into the driveway, Mom's flowers were still lined up perfectly against the bricks. Nothing had changed, and somehow that felt worse than if everything had. The first thing I noticed when I walked back into the house was the smell. Same candles, same floor polish, same artificial calm that pretended nothing bad had ever happened here. Mom stood in the kitchen with a tray of cookies like we were hosting guests. She smiled the way people do when they're trying to convince themselves of something. Welcome home, she said. Not I missed you, not are you okay. Just welcome, like I'd been gone on a long trip she'd already finished talking about. Ryan came down the stairs grinning. Hey, big sis. He looked different, older, confident. His hair was styled, his clothes new. In the living room, there was a brand new gaming setup, wide monitor, LED lights, chair that still smelled like fresh plastic. Dad stood near the doorway with his phone half in his hand. He gave me a quick pat on the shoulder. We all make mistakes, he said, like he'd memorized the line. I didn't answer. My room was gone. They'd turned it into a guest room. Fresh paint, decorative pillows, no trace I'd ever lived there. My clothes, books, and bike parts were boxed up in the garage, labeled Gwen's Old Things. Old. That night, we had dinner like it was a holiday. Mom asked surface questions. Did they feed you well? Did you learn anything helpful? I answered yes to everything because it was easier. Ryan watched me between bites, waiting for me to slip. The next morning, there was a note taped to the fridge. House guidelines for reintegration. Respect space, communicate calmly, demonstrate trustworthiness. No signature, but I knew her handwriting. School was worse. The first day back, whispers followed me from locker to locker. Someone said, "That's the girl who hit her brother." I heard it enough times that I stopped pretending I didn't. Mr. Collins pulled me aside after class. "I hope you're doing better now," he said carefully, like he was talking to a recovering addict. "Yeah," I replied. That was it. By the end of the week, I heard Ryan telling people he'd forgiven me. "That's really mature of your brother," a classmate said. I laughed once, sharp and short, then stopped. At home, Mom treated me like a guest on probation. "It's nice to see you trying," she'd say. "I hope this calm version of you lasts." If I forgot to close a cabinet or left a light on, she'd pause, breathe through her nose, and say, "Let's not slip back into old habits." Dad avoided real conversations. He'd say, "We're proud of you," without looking up from his phone. Ryan loved testing me. He borrowed my headphones and forgot to return them. I caught him digging through my boxes in the garage. "Just looking for my old stuff," he said, smirking, and left a comic book torn on the floor. I didn't react. I knew that's what he wanted. 2 weeks later, I got a part-time job at a local auto shop. The owner, Rick, was in his 40s. Bald, heavy hands, no patience for nonsense. "You work, you get paid," he said. "Don't screw around." That was the entire interview. The shop smelled like oil and metal. Tools clanged. Engines roared. Nothing was pretending to be something it wasn't. Rick didn't ask about my past. One day, when I asked if he needed my ID for paperwork, he shrugged. "Just show up on time. That's ID enough." For the first time in months, I felt normal. Back home, nothing changed. Mom still avoided eye contact. Dad stayed neutral. Ryan kept pushing. One night, I came home late from a shift. They were watching TV. Ryan muted it. "Working hard," he said. "That place must be teaching you discipline." Mom smiled faintly. "See? Positive structure works." I went upstairs without answering. The next day, I came home early and heard Ryan on his phone. "She's calm now because they fixed her," he laughed. "Yeah, it worked. She barely talks. She's like a robot." I stood there listening. "Mom says she's proud of how I handled everything," he continued. "Guess I'm the reason our family's okay." I walked out the front door before I said something I couldn't take back. The air outside was cold enough to sting. I sat on the curb across the street, watching sprinklers tick across perfect lawns. They hadn't fixed me. They'd just trained me not to fight back. The next morning, I opened a teen account at the credit union near the shop. I deposited my first paycheck. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know what I was saving for. A car, a room far away, a life that didn't require permission. But it felt good knowing I had something that was mine. Ryan grew bolder. Money started going missing from Mom's purse. Small amounts. She didn't ask him. She asked me. I know you've been trying, she said one night, calm but sharp. But old habits don't vanish overnight. You think I stole $20? I asked. She sighed. I didn't say that. Ryan walked by eating chips, pretending not to listen. The corner of his mouth twitched. The next morning, Mom's watch was gone. That night, Ryan posted a story online. When toxic people play the victim, it's just sad. He tagged a quote about recovery not being real for everyone. A few kids reshared it. I didn't respond. At work, Rick noticed the grease on my hands and the silence in my voice. Family can make you crazy, he said one afternoon while tightening a bolt. They build a picture in their heads, then get mad when you don't fit in it. At home, things were starting to unravel. Ryan got caught plagiarizing an essay. Mom blamed stress. Then he disappeared with her debit card for a few hours. She turned to me. Can't you try to be supportive? He's still healing from what happened with you. He's not healing, I said. He's manipulating you. Her eyes went cold. Don't project your issues onto him. I stopped explaining. Silence was easier. It bothered her more. Everything blew up on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were usually quiet at the shop. Less customers, more time under the hood. I was halfway through replacing brake pads when Rick's voice cut through the noise. Gwen, he said, low and careful, you might want to come up front. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked toward the counter. My mother was standing there. Her face was red, lips pressed so tight they'd almost disappeared. She gripped her purse like she might swing it. For a second, I thought she was going to cry. For another second, I thought she was going to scream. You need to stop enabling my daughter, she snapped at Rick. She's supposed to be in recovery, not hiding in garages. Rick didn't raise his voice. He didn't flinch. She's working, he said calmly. Harder than most adults I know. Mom pointed at me. You don't understand. She has violent tendencies. She needs supervision. She's manipulating you. Rick stepped closer, his voice dropping just enough to carry weight. Ma'am, the only person yelling here is you. Her breath hitched. You'll regret protecting her. Rick nodded toward the door. Then you can take that energy somewhere else. Out. She froze, like no one had ever spoken to her that way before. Then she turned and stormed out, heels clicking like punctuation marks on the floor. I stood there shaking. Rick looked at me. You okay? I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. That night, she was waiting. The house was dark except for the dining room light. Mom stood at the table with her arms crossed like a judge, ready to deliver a sentence. How dare you humiliate me like that, she said. I didn't do anything, I replied. You made me look insane in front of a stranger, she snapped. You think you're better than this family now? Before I could answer, Ryan came down the stairs, playing mediator. Mom, calm down, he said gently. She's doing that thing again. You're scaring her. I turned toward him. You started this. Mom stepped between us. Don't raise your voice. I didn't. See, Ryan said softly. She's doing it again. Something in Mom snapped. She slapped me. The sound was sharp and final. It echoed louder than it hurt. For a second, she looked shocked, like she hadn't expected herself to do it. Her hand trembled in the air. Ryan smirked behind her. I straightened. My voice came out flat. You need help more than I ever did. Dad appeared in the hallway, half awake, eyes darting between us. He said nothing. Then he turned and walked into the kitchen. That silence hurt worse than the slap. I went upstairs and packed a bag. Wallet, phone, a few clothes, the small wrench Rick had given me on my first week. I wrote a note on the back of an envelope. I'm not angry. I'm just done. When I came back down, Mom was sitting at the table, crying without sound. Ryan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, still playing innocent. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out. Outside, the night air was cool and quiet. Streetlights buzzed overhead. As I passed the next house, Mrs. Helen was on her porch, watering her plants, even though it was dark. She looked at my bag and said, "Good riddance." I stopped and looked at her. "Yeah," I said, half smiling. "You'll see." The room above Rick's garage wasn't much, but it was mine. It smelled like oil and metal. The floor creaked when the wind shifted. I finished my GED through night classes at the community center. Rick cleared it with the landlord as long as rent showed up and the fire extinguisher tags were current. No one asked my age. I worked long hours. Rick paid me cash at first, then put me on the books. He handed me a key to the garage. "Lock up when you're done," he said. "Don't burn the place down." That was his version of trust. At night, I started writing. At first, it was just notes, memories from Ridgeway, the fake smiles, the scripted therapy lines. Then I started posting them online under an anonymous account, the ones they fixed. The first post read, "I was sent away for something I didn't do. They called it recovery. It was punishment. People started responding. Kids, parents, former staff. Someone mentioned the same counselor. Someone else shared photos of the dorms. Then someone dropped a link. Ridgeway Youth Recovery, under investigation for unethical practices. Same company, same methods, different name every few years. Rick found me typing one night and raised an eyebrow. You doing homework or starting a war? Just writing, I said. He nodded. Good. Just build something out of it. Don't let it eat you. A few weeks later, one of my posts went viral. Not huge, but enough. The local news picked it up. They called it rehab or rebrand, the hidden industry of behavioral programs. I never used my name. I didn't have to. The truth was doing fine without me. Mom called screaming. You're ruining this family, she said. Your brother is suffering because of this. He started it, I replied. I just stopped covering for it. I hung up. Time moved faster after that. Ryan got suspended for stealing money from classmates, then caught shoplifting. Mom blamed everyone else. Dad called one night and asked to meet. We met in a diner parking lot. He stayed in the car. I saw Ryan break that monitor, he said quietly, that night. I leaned against the door. You let them send me away to keep the peace. He nodded. I'm sorry. I pulled out my phone. Say it again. He did. I didn't post it. I didn't need his guilt. The last call came months later. Mom. Crying. Angry. Broken. You destroyed this family, she said. I didn't argue. Some families don't fall apart all at once. They unravel when the truth finally stops being afraid. Life got quieter after that. Not peaceful, just quieter, like the constant hum in my head had finally shut off. I worked. I slept. I saved money. I didn't think about my family unless something dragged them back into my orbit. Rick let me handle more responsibility at the shop. Customers started asking for me by name. That still felt strange, being trusted without having to prove I wasn't dangerous first. One night, near closing, I heard knocking on the garage door. When I opened it, Ryan was standing there. He looked wrecked. Same hoodie he used to brag about, now torn, stained. His eyes were red and unfocused like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't smirk. He didn't perform. Mom kicked me out, he said flatly. I leaned against the counter. Why? He let out a dry laugh that turned into a cough. She said I embarrassed her, said I turned out just like you. I didn't answer. He sat on a stool, shoulders shaking. After a long moment, he whispered, I lied, Gwen. I stayed still. That night, he continued, staring at his hands, I made it all up. I didn't think they'd actually send you away. I just wanted her to look at me. He started crying, real crying this time. No audience, no script. The bruise wasn't even from you, he said. I fell off my bike earlier that week. I knew she'd believe it. She always did. I handed him a bottle of water. Tell her, I said. He looked up confused. She won't listen. That's your problem now, I replied. He left a few minutes later, shoulders hunched, like the air itself was heavy. I locked the door behind him and went back to work. A few weeks later, a letter arrived in Dad's handwriting. I skimmed the first line. Your mother's having a breakdown. Ryan's in therapy. I'm leaving town. I folded it once and dropped it into a drawer. I never opened it again. 2 years passed. I turned 20. Rick semi-retired and let me run most of the shop. He put me on the books officially and let me invoice my bays under my own name. Gwen Austin Auto Repair. I moved into a small apartment above a bakery across town. Plain, quiet, mine. Sometimes customers mention my family in passing. A woman named Clara ranting at church. A boy sent to live with relatives. Lawsuits that went nowhere. Bridges burned one accusation at a time. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing it, just distance. One morning, my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. I told her everything. I'm sorry. Ryan. I stared at the message for a long time, typed something, deleted it, then set the phone down. Outside, the morning air was cool. A delivery truck rumbled down the street. The shop door was open, sunlight glinting off metal racks and tools. I pulled the same wrench from my pocket, the one Rick gave me when I first started. The metal was worn smooth from use. Everything I'd fixed over the years had one thing in common. Nothing ever went back exactly the way it was before. You could repair it, make it work, but the break was still there, even if no one could see it. I looked back at the shop, the open bay, the sound of a new day starting. Some things don't get fixed. You just build something better without them.